Hello everyone, Kim Victoria here. Welcome back to my channel. I'm doing a demonstration today in oil painting, and this demonstration is specifically geared toward the painting class lesson 2 about proportions and hidden shapes. Okay? And I wanted to do this demo while I had that set up over there, which you can just see peeking through. I'm going to be using just a basic canvas panel, an 8x10, and I'm using a filbert brush. It's a number 6 filbert. This one is a synthetic. It wasn't a real high quality one, but it's worked very well. But it is starting to show a little bit of wear. You can see it starting to splay out there. So this one is going to be for more of the rough applications and not refined applications. But I want you to see that you can paint with maybe not so perfect a brush, maybe not, you don't need to clean the brush either. And I'm going to do this entire painting with these earth colors. I've got yellow ochre and titanium white and burnt sienna. And they're just earth colors, very common. And there's just a touch of viridian there that I used on the apple object. Now, I did this painting yesterday, but I forgot to push the record button. So, yeah, the palette has been well used. I added some more paint, and I thinned the white and the yellow ochre with just a tiny bit of solvent because they were very, very thick. And so I just needed to loosen them up a little bit. And it's very good to use solvent on your base layers just so that the paint dries a little quicker. This is the fat over lean principle. You want lean at this beginning layer. And I will show you the painting I did yesterday later. So we learned a lot in the class. If you watched the class, and I hope you did, and by all means, please watch the class so you understand what I'm doing. Because what I'm going to be doing first here is I'm using the information that I gathered in the class presentation to how to find things and how to place things in my picture plane. So as I look at my setup, my objects, what I find easiest is to determine what a baseline is. And we talk about that in the painting class number 2. And I want to find the center from right and left so that I've got the exact middle, because I remember, and I can always go back and measure again, I remember that the overall shape of these objects is 2 squares side by side. Now I decided that, yeah, I didn't want my baseline to be quite so high up. So I moved it down. And that's what we're doing. We're looking, we're finding things, and we're looking right now is how are all these objects going to fit inside of this picture plane? It's kind of a trial and error kind of thing, because that's the beauty of it. With oils especially. With acrylics, I'm probably going to take a different approach. I do know that I don't want the tail of the bird object to go off the canvas on the right. And I also know that I don't want the apple object going off the canvas to the left. I want to make sure everything fits inside. And I really want to allow some room in case this picture would go into a picture frame. I don't want things getting cut off either. So we know from our earlier experiments that we have 2 squares side by side. So once I have the dimension from the baseline from right to left, I can make the 2 squares, the height needs to equal the length, the halfway point. And so I realized I had it a little bit off. And you know, it'll all make sense because that's the beauty with oils, especially. Now, I'm going to say that a lot because we can really do a lot of editing with oils in a different way than with acrylics. And I really want to emphasize that because acrylics is a really good medium. It's just you have to treat it differently. Oil we can really manipulate because it stays open for such a long time. And open simply means that you can keep manipulating it. Okay, you can erase it, you can add to it, you can scumble it, you can do all kinds of stuff. So I'm doing a little measuring again. I want to make sure that I'm getting my proportions right. You know, that's really important. And the bird beak is what lands at the exact center. Okay? So I'm looking for where things are in relationship to each other. I'm looking at their proportions. And I'm thinking about these proportions. And I'm going back to what I learned in the painting class too. So I remember that we have a diagonal, and we know that the diagonal goes to the point of the tail. And somewhere over here that the opposite diagonal is going to touch the top of the apple object, right? I mean, that's what we learned in the class. Okay, so I'm looking at the vase shape, and I'm double checking to make sure that I have its proportions right. Okay, so I'm starting to find where things are. I know this is taking a lot of time, but I want to make sure you understand what I'm thinking about. Because I'm doing a lot of thinking for this kind of a presentation. I don't normally need to do this much analyzing, so to speak, in an articulate way. Normally I just go for it, just so I just want you to know that this is just a demonstration, and I don't necessarily draw all the same lines and all of that sort of thing. So I know that the vase is twice as high as it is wide. So it's two squares, one on top of the other. And it's slightly to the left because the right side of the vase shape descends down to the top of the bird's head. Okay, so I have kind of a general sense now of where things are. So I can get a little bit of a darker color now, and I'm doing this for the demonstration. And you see that bottom line, I put it up a little higher because that's how I see it. I see it as being a little higher than the base line of the bird and the apple. So right now, that's all I'm doing. I'm searching, and I know that the apple is a little shorter than this, a little smaller square, shall I say, but very similar to the square size of half of the vase. I hope that makes sense. But yeah, I tend to work rather geometric in the beginning. Maybe not this geometric, but it's actually a very good practice to start with some simple geometry, because it's much easier to round off a square or a rectangle than, you get more, what's the word? Strength in the structure. When we have horizontals and verticals that are very strong, we create strength in the appearance of objects. We can soften everything up later, okay? So if as you look at the photo and you look at this, I'm hoping that you can see what I see. So I also felt that to divide up the space, I would put kind of like a line indicating the front of an imaginary table. I am not sure if I'm going to use that back line. Just a quick note, I took the photograph that you're seeing at night, so there would be less confusion as for the highlights and that sort of thing, and from slightly higher an angle. Okay, so let's see. I think what I really want you to know right now is now that you're watching what I'm doing and kind of have a sense of what I'm thinking about. What I want to do is just have this sped up, and you can watch the process. And what I'm doing is what I was describing in class number 2, so that you see what I'm doing and you have some familiarity with what I am thinking. And that's the big thing, is that when you are learning how to see shapes and proportions and negative space, hidden shapes, and light and dark. Oh, and I do wind up squinting quite often to create a little separation, but I did paint this in the daytime, so my result comes out different than the photo. I did not use the photo for my model. I was painting in the daytime, so the lighting was different. I hope you will use a screenshot if you want to of the photo if you want to do this same painting and kind of follow along with the idea. But there's more contrast in the photo that I took at night than what I was trying to do during the daytime. So that way you're seeing, you're seeing another aspect of it, is the difference between having your lighting be so different. So I'm just moving through the thought process that I talked about in the class number 2, and just taking it one step at a time. I think that the painting would look much better if I was using the nighttime image. And that's one of the things that if you want to do this sort of thing, you might want to set yourself up with some sort of a box. I need to make something better so that I can block out skylights and window lights and just have a single focused light, which is what you see in the photograph. But it is also informative for you to see what I was dealing with in a daytime situation. I'm using the same spotlight, but there's a lot of ambient light. And so that's a very different way of seeing things. There's a lot more, there's less contrast. There's more similarity. There's less separation between the objects and the background. And there's a little bit stronger light inside of the objects. So there's all those factors to consider is in your setup. But you can use really high contrast, colorful images and things like that so that you get the effect you want even in broad daylight with no directional light at all. So that's kind of what I want to get across, is for you to think about that. Okay? Other than that, just kind of, I hope that this is informative for you. Oh, and by the way, just to make sure you know, I am only wiping this brush off on my denim rags. I am not washing it at any time. I am just playing with a dirty brush, which works out quite well. It really does. And with that, I think I'm going to call it quits. And there it is. And I plan on doing more to it. I'm not going to use a photo, but I think I want to brighten up the green and put a little green in the vase, but it is so wet at this point. I don't want to refine it too much. There is a certain charm with a painting that's a little rough. I mean, it's a painting. You know, I'm not creating or trying to create a photograph. Um, so yeah, so I'm going to leave this one where it is. And here's the one I did yesterday. I had a little bit different lighting situation, and so it came out different. Um, and yeah, they both have a uniqueness. This one I added more shadow, and I think I might add a little bit more color, like to the beak and to the apple, but I'm going to leave this one rough also. And here's the two of them together. Yesterday's on the left and today's on the right. Also, the one that I did yesterday, I was working on a toned canvas. We'll talk about that another time, but you probably are familiar with that. I basically already had kind of a medium tone on it to start with. I wasn't starting on a white canvas. So, you know, there's these different factors. Um, and I think both of them work. You know, they're a little bit different. The one on the left, the vase is, I decided to make it a little bit larger. And artist prerogative, right? So yeah, so that is where we are with this demonstration. I certainly hope that this was interesting and informative. Um, yeah, I think I said everything in there. This is just one way of approach. This is just one type of approach, and so that's what I wanted to convey. That's what I wanted to demonstrate for you, is this kind of a thought process. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed that. I'm going to do the same setup with acrylic paint for the next video. So that's going to be with a little bit different approach. As I've said before, I'm not as proficient with acrylics, so this will be interesting for both of us. All right. I hope you'll join me. Thank you so much. Bye for now.